Hey there, marvelous superhero fans, we're back with another The Boys video for you today. We're talking about 9 Homelander kills from the comics that were too brutal for television. Let's get into it. Arguably, no show did more than The Boys in removing those rose-tinted glasses through which people tend to view superhero shows. Of course, Antony Starr's exceptional performance as the Homelander significantly contributes to the reputation held by The Boys as certainly one of the most disturbing, brutal, and ruthless shows of all time. But did you know, even for a show as brutal and unhinged as The Boys, there were certain Homelander kills in the comics it's based on that simply didn't make it to the TV show? In this video, we'll walk through about 9 Homelander kills from the comics that were way too brutal for television. Alright folks, let's jump right in. The Baby Feast Massacre, actually Black Noir, The Boys number 40. In the 40th issue of The Boys comics, there's a brief scene in which James Sitwell and Jessica Bradley are discussing the horrifying and heinous violent acts of Homelander, as they're looking at the pictures in which Homelander is violently killing, dismembering, and even eating people, including a newborn baby. The creators of the TV show were not willing to cross this line. In the comics, it's ultimately revealed that it was Black Noir impersonating Homelander and committing those heinous and evil acts. On the other hand, in the TV show, Black Noir's role is not that of someone who acts as a clone of Homelander. The creators of the TV show wanted to ensure that Homelander remains the central antagonist. Even without that scene, this show has managed to disturb its viewers significantly. Now imagine what could have happened if this scene would have been in the show. This scene from the comics is widely considered as the most horrifying and heinous act committed by Homelander. It seems like the TV show doesn't pull any punches when it comes to portraying sequences of unhinged, brutal, shocking, and horrifying violence. But showing Homelander eating a newborn human baby is an entirely different thing altogether. In the TV show, we can see that even in the climactic fight scenes of the Season 2 finale that eventually culminated in the death of Stormfront, Homelander is shown fighting a bunch of armed men. Even in that particular brief scene, most of the violence happens off-screen. Forget straight-up portrayal, we can't even think about the Baby Feast Massacre getting mentioned in the series. It's simply out of bounds. The President's Decapitation in the Oval Office. The Boys number 65. In the 65th issue of The Boys comics, there's an extremely disturbing scene in which Homelander is sitting in the Oval Office while looking at the decapitated head of President Victor Newman and talking to Billy Butcher. That whole scene is shocking and violent beyond belief. The entire Oval Office is filled with blood. This scene is part of the larger final confrontation that takes place between Homelander, Black Noir, and Butcher. The TV show version of Victor Newman is actually a woman named Victoria Newman, and her death is handled differently in the TV show as she's killed by Billy Butcher instead of Homelander. In the final episode of the 4th season, Victoria Newman's death is very brutal, unexpected, sudden, and terrifying in the show, but I still feel that they didn't go as far as in the comics. Despite the strong presence of disturbing, shocking, and disgustingly violent scenes, the TV show has certain boundaries the comics don't have. The makers of the show definitely won't take any chances with a major character like Homelander holding a decapitated head of the President of the United States. Hollywood would never cross that boundary. That simply won't happen, especially when a major corporation like Amazon is involved. Even if the TV show plays it unsafe, it played unsafe within certain boundaries. An extremely popular movie, Taxi Driver, portrayed its protagonist Travis Bickle attempting to assassinate a US senator running for president. A person named John Hinckley Jr., influenced by that movie, shot President Ronald Reagan in an attempt to assassinate him. Ronald Reagan was injured, but he survived the attempt. The makers of the TV show knew that showing the president's decapitation, as depicted in the comics, could potentially have disastrous and catastrophic real-world political consequences. The White House Bloodbath, The Boys number 65. The Boys comics don't pull any punches when it comes to vividly and imaginatively portraying the White House bloodbath in a way that's disturbingly and horrifyingly violent. It involves fighter jets, military personnel, Secret Service agents, Black Noir, Butcher, and Homelander. Homelander is violently and fatally attacking military personnel and Secret Service agents. The President, Victor Newman himself, gets decapitated, and we see Homelander sitting in the Oval Office and holding his decapitated head. Not only that, there's a brutal fight sequence between Black Noir and Homelander, which again involves severe decapitation. This entire sequence is completely unhinged. The TV show never reaches that level of brutality. I think there could have been even more real-world political controversies than the ones we had with this show if a TV show as mainstream and popular as The Boys would have portrayed the White House bloodbath as depicted in the comics. The kind of controversies the makers of the show wanted to avoid, I guess. The producers would not want a mainstream TV show to go that far. Professor Banzai's Decapitation, The Boys number 20. In the 20th issue of The Boys comics, Professor Banzai commits the fatal mistake of provoking Homelander into a fight. That stupid move by Professor Banzai cost him his life, as he's swiftly and suddenly decapitated by Homelander. We see Professor Banzai's blood spilling everywhere. Professor Banzai isn't shown in the TV show, and maybe for practical reasons, that whole sequence didn't make it to the show. This event from the comics further adds to the brutality and ruthlessness of Homelander. It displays how Homelander doesn't want to be challenged or provoked by any other superhuman. He wants to be on top of the world, and he can't tolerate anyone attempting to mock him or take his place. The creators of the TV show didn't want to show every violent and heinous act of Homelander committed in the comics, so they skipped this one entirely. In fact, there are no scenes with Professor Banzai in the TV show. However, I have no doubt that if this scene were included in the show, it would have further solidified Homelander's reputation as someone with superpowers who's extremely insecure, narcissistic, and psychopathic. The 9/11 plane disaster. The Boys number 21 to 24. Core incident in number 21. In the 21st issue of The Boys comics, Homelander, while seemingly trying to rescue a hijacked plane, ends up completely botching the rescue mission because of his own incompetence. He ruptures the eardrums of the passengers by screaming at them. He does that to the people he's supposed to save. The lives of those innocent civilians are left at the mercy of a selfish, violent, narcissistic psychopath with superpowers who only cares about himself and doesn't value human life at all. Homelander deliberately lets the plane crash, killing all the passengers on board. He even splits the plane into two parts by crashing himself into it. And during that time, Mr. Marathon is on his back and he gets decapitated and brutally killed as well. And if that's not brutal and disturbing enough, the plane crashes at the Brooklyn Bridge, killing numerous people who are walking on it. This is one of the most crucial events that eventually leads to the proper preparation and planning arc in which the boys are devising more and more strategies to defeat the Seven and Homelander. It all builds up to the final violent and brutal confrontation in the White House. On the other hand, the TV show also has a hijacked plane scene, but that's handled very differently from the comics. And even though that scene in the TV show does further expose the brutality and ruthlessness of Homelander, it comes nowhere close to the casual brutality, cruelty, and ruthlessness of the plane and the Brooklyn Bridge disaster depicted in the comics. This scene from the comics is so brutal, triggering, and traumatizing that if it were included in the show, it would have triggered PTSD among many viewers, probably. Sonic Scream Crowd Kill, The Boys number 21. The fact that Homelander, without flinching, uses his sonic scream to casually rupture the eardrums of the passengers who are already scared for their lives is evidence of the lack of humanity, empathy, and mercy Homelander possesses. Of Homelander, it completely subverts and undermines the conventional superhero tropes, according to which a superhuman would always think selflessly. In conventional superhero comics and movies, the powers possessed by superheroes create a sense of hope. On the other hand, in the Boys comics and the TV show, the powers possessed by extremely evil superhumans like Homelander create a sense of dread, fear, and hopelessness for innocent and powerless civilians. Homelander knew that with just a scream, he could rupture the eardrums and make the innocent and scared passengers bleed. And he still did it. The casualty of his cruelty is truly terrifying. And yes, I don't think the show went that far despite its reputation. If this scene were included in the TV show, it would have turned into a straight-up horror show. Dropping civilians to their death, The Boys number 47. In the 47th issue of The Boys comics, the winners of the Believe event, the Muller family, as part of their reward, gets an opportunity to have a dinner with Homelander. They're sitting in their car. Homelander lifts the car and flies them up in the air. At first they seem to be enjoying the view from the sky, but later on they get extremely scared. Homelander starts mocking their naivete and innocence, and then he drops them from the sky, to their deaths. This extremely disturbing scene did not make it to the TV show. What's really disturbing about this scene is that the Muller family didn't deserve what happened to them. There's no explanation or moral justification for what Homelander did. It's just pure, unhinged evil. And that's exactly what makes this scene so brutal. It truly captures the contempt Homelander has for humanity, without any filter. If this scene were in the show, it definitely would have added to the disturbing nature and the overall brutality of it, and it could have even been more triggering for the viewers. This scene alone has the potential to completely make you lose faith in the inherent goodness of superheroes. People have used scientific, technological, and industrial advancements for both good and evil. The scene from the Boys comics would compel you to apply the same logic to superheroes. Some of them might use their superpowers responsibly for the purposes of helping and rescuing other people. Others, not so much. Homelander is definitely in the category of superheroes who would use their superpowers irresponsibly and for self-serving purposes. Queen Maeve's off-panel beheading, The Boys number 63. In the TV show, Homelander in the finale of the 3rd season permanently damages one of Queen Maeve's eyes, causing her to become blind in one eye. Following the fight, Queen Maeve loses her superpowers and goes into hiding with her girlfriend. However, in the comics, she suffers a fate that's way worse than that. In the 63rd issue of the Boys comics, Queen Maeve betrays Homelander to save Starlight and pays a fatal price for it. Homelander mercilessly and cruelly beheads her. The makers of the TV show significantly changed how Queen Maeve's fate was handled in the comics. In the TV show, Queen Maeve's story concludes on a far more positive note, especially as compared to the comics. If her beheading scene from the comics were included in the series, then that would have given her a radically different conclusion from the one she got in the series, and as a result of that, the show would have been way darker. By changing the fate of Queen Maeve, the makers of the show made the series comparatively less brutal and dark. In my opinion, they handled the character of Queen Maeve way more respectfully in the TV show, and they did that to possibly make the overall tone of the show more balanced. The comics didn't follow this delicate and balanced approach. They were brutal, dark, and violent through and through. The final slugfest with Black Noir, The Boys number 65. In the 65th issue of The Boys comics, following the White House takeover by Homelander, an extremely violent, spine-chilling, and brutal fight occurs between Homelander and Black Noir. Before the fight, Black Noir reveals to Homelander that he was the one who impersonated him and committed the Baby Feast massacre. Both Homelander and Black Noir completely rip and tear each other apart in that fight sequence. Black Noir ends up killing Homelander in that fight, but gets severely injured, disfigured, and mutilated. Following the fight, he looks like he's about to die any second. Parts of his body are just not there in place. Billy Butcher takes advantage of that and ends up brutally killing Black Noir by tearing apart his face and skull. Or to be more specific, tearing apart what's left of his face and skull. Despite the disturbing violence and brutality of the TV show, none of the scenes in the series have dared to go that far. Yet. On the other hand, in the TV show, Black Noir simply gets killed by Homelander without a tough fight. Although that scene is quite shocking, it's still not as shocking and brutal as the climactic fight that takes place between them in the comics. Also, Black Noir's role is far more terrifying in the comics, and that's why it's not surprising that his face-off with the most terrifying character in the comics is extremely shocking, vile, and disturbing as well. By changing the role of Black Noir, the TV show ended the possibility of the brutal face-off we get to see in the comics. It's quite obvious that whatever reputation Homelander from the Boys TV show holds, the comics it's based on dial him up to 100. Also, the TV show is more mainstream, and maybe that's why the makers of the show toned down the brutality and cruelty of Homelander just a bit. Many of these Homelander kills simply didn't make it to the TV show. Season 5 is already here, and we can't wait to see what fate awaits Homelander. Alright folks, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for being with us. We'll meet you soon with our next video.